our then Prime Minister was not a fan of following the manifesto in its entirety. So the manifesto is more of a tool for him, and he would agree with this himself. I think he said it himself. I didn't read the manifesto, so there were things in the manifesto that perhaps I wasn't aware about. He said it, which was again not helpful and undermining our cause.
Hi, welcome back. This is part 2 of a discussion. Now we're going to talk about a time when we were both in opposition. Of course, Tony was in opposition earlier than me, 2008. I came in 2013. So 1 term in opposition for me, 2 terms for Tony. And I think I want to start off with some of the things that you...
2.5 terms.
2.5 terms, yes. Yes, 2.5 terms, 1.5 terms for me, I forgot after... And we'll talk about that as well. After 2020, when the Sheraton Move happened. I want to start by, your first term, 2008 to 2013. And that time I was doing my PhD, at least part of it, in the US. And I noticed some of the things that you were doing. So, for example, you were one of the people that came up with a alternative budget document for the DAP at that point in time. I remember one of your interns was actually, Duke student at that point in time. And also, there were others in your team as well. Helping you out. So what was the genesis of that? I mean, previously, DAP did not attempt to present any alternative budget. And what was your motivation on wanting to do something like that?
I don't know about motivation. It was an instruction actually from Guan Ning,
okay,
who was then the Secretary General. He brought me in, and your job now, create an alternative budget, make ourselves credible. I think one of the challenges we faced, the party faced then, was there was a lack of policy makers or
policy thinkers, maybe.
Policy thinkers or policy people generally within the party, and whatever they had was sourced from outside assistance, NGOs and so on. So it was the first opportunity for us to try and put together a set of policies that befits the principles that was supported by the party and put it out to the public. So we actually published the first DAP's alternative budget in 2009 actually, 2008-09, before embarking on the first Pakatan
Harapan, yep.
No, the first one was... So it was still a DAP's alternative budget.
Yeah, because that time it's still Pakatan Rakyat.
No, that time, yes. Before it became a Pakatan Rakyat exercise, I think in 2010.
What was the sort of process like in terms of trying to get DAP leaders and members to understand the contents of the alternative budget? Do you think there was interest?
There's no question that other than maybe a handful of policies that were more relevant for them, no, general interest in alternative budgets or budgets for that matter is actually very low. I think that there's no question about it, and no reason to hide it, because it is what it is.
It's interesting that you bring that point up, because this was during my first term, and it was about maybe in 2016 when we had 3 budgets that a fellow DAP MP, whom I shall not name, came to me and said, hey, what is this Anggaran budget or the budget estimates, which is part and parcel of the budget documents that are released. And I was a bit surprised, because this is the 3rd year, and this person still did not actually bother to go and read the estimates. Of course, there are many others who actually do within the party that at that time do go through these documents quite carefully. But yeah, I think it's a reflection of the fact that sometimes these documents may not be so easily understood, even among members of parliament. But then, we had this Pakatan Rakyat and then later Pakatan Harapan budget exercise. Were you involved in the early stages?
I was involved in the early stages of the alternative budget by Pakatan Rakyat. That was in 2010 and 2011. And subsequent to that, it was led by Rafizi and yourself.
Yeah, I remember Chin Tong was there as well, and a few others, Wong Chen. Yeah, so I think 2013 when I came in, I was roped in to present DAP's inputs and also my own experience as an academic, a former management consultant with some training in economics, to beef up the Pakatan Harapan budget. We'll talk about the manifesto later, but yeah, I mean, that was the exercise that we had to go through. I still remember that, we tried to get inputs from the MPs. We tried to get inputs from different sources, including think tanks. And at the time, think tanks were just starting to be more active, ideas and others as well. So there was some engagement, and I think it was part and parcel of that process that actually built up the credibility of the opposition, Pakatan Rakyat, and then later Pakatan Harapan, so that at the end of the day, we did produce 2 manifestos, I think one in 2013 and then one in 2018. Do you have any recollections about some of the details in both manifestos?
Some details.
I think 2013, the exercise was mostly led by Rafizi. The rest of us gave some inputs, but not all of it was incorporated. I think the more meaningful exercise took place in the 2018 manifesto. So that manifesto, resulted in a document that was, I think, pretty substantive. It was, I think 60, 70 pages, over 100 suggestions. And I remember, not sure whether you do, when we met with the TKSP, Siti Zawiyah from MOF, before Guan Yin came in, we had the pre-council, and she had one document on her table, and that was the alternative manifesto. And when I went into MITI as Deputy Minister, that document was also on the table of the then KSU, Dato' Isham. So these things are important because they set the tone for how you want to govern. Because without that manifesto, I think we would have not had any governing direction for the government after 2018. Would you agree?
Yes, and perhaps with some nuances and caveats. Manifestos.
No, I know they're not Bible. Yes, said by some people. Bukan kitab.
Yeah, but when you say that very phrase that manifestos are not Bibles becomes controversial, and we went through this controversy. We went through this controversy during our first term that was not helpful for our cause.
Yep.
There was conflicting messages from our leaders. This was the part where the Pakatan Harapan coalition was still trying to find its footing. The different coalitions were still trying to work with one another. And hence, parties. The messaging coming out from the government was inconsistent, and it wasn't helpful for us. It's understandable why it is that way, given the nature of the coalition and the fact that it was the first time we were in government, but it was definitely not helpful to our cause and didn't give confidence to the people out there. While as much as manifestos are not Bibles, you can't quite say that to the people who voted for you based on the manifestos. No policy documents are cast in stone.
Yep.
It should never be cast in stone. Adjustments and improvements should continue to be made regardless of whatever manifesto that is presented. So it can never be 100%. But to say that manifestos are not Bibles is like trying to throw mud at the supporters who vote for you, saying that, yes, I promise you this, but I don't have to fulfill it for you. And hence, understandably, the supporters were angry. So you get a lot of columns, comments, scolding the government for not wanting to fulfill promises in the manifesto, which was not what is meant by saying manifestos are not Bibles.
No, but it also conflicts in the sense that it sends conflicting signals to the civil service.
That's right. So do we follow or do we not follow? And then at that point in time, our then Prime Minister was not a fan of following the manifesto in its entirety. So the manifesto is more of a tool for him, and he would agree with this himself. I think he said it himself. I didn't read the manifesto, so there were things in the manifesto that perhaps I wasn't aware about. He said it, which was again not helpful and undermining our cause. So then there were other leaders who tried to keep that that spirit alive to say, no, we'll try our best to fulfill all the manifestos, and then trying to limit the damage by showing the progress charts of all the things that we have done in the manifesto, which many of which we have completed. No, we have fulfilled many of our manifesto promises, but it became buried or drowned in the chaotic debate as to whether manifestos were Bibles or not Bibles. So it wasn't helpful. I think that was one unfortunate, I wouldn't say regret, but scenario or things that took place after the elections.
I don't know whether you still remember, but in the design of the manifesto, I think one of the things that came up quite regularly was the toll roads.
That's right.
Right, and then Mahathir at the time, as the leader of the opposition, said that if we get rid of the tolls, who's going to pay for the maintenance? That was his mentality. And I don't know whether you remember, I suggested that, hey, why don't we seek a private meeting to go and brief him on this, right? And then you said that.